Hello everybody and welcome back to another CB Show Tunes tutorial. Now today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating the weapon controller for our character. Now we're just going to be setting up the weapon today, and then we'll start adding modifications to it, like switching the weapon and refilling and all that sort of stuff later on. As you can see, we're also working inside a new environment. I decided to go ahead and create a little playground that we can move around in just for the heck of it. I also imported some new assets so we can actually start having some really nice looking weapons as well. Now, if you don't have these assets, it's okay. You can either go to the asset store, pick up some free ones, or if you want to, you can go purchase them. It's really up to you. Or you can even make them yourself. Or you can just stick with this cube. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is delete that cube. We don't need it. And make sure that you change this first-person character right here underneath the FPS controller to first-person camera. It just really bugged me that it kept saying character, and yeah, that's the reason why I changed it to that. Now, what we want to do is select our first-person camera, and we're going to right-click and create an empty object. This is going to be our weapon holder. It's going to give us all the data for our weapon as to where a weapon is going to spawn at. You can drag this wherever you want to drag it. I'm just going to drag it right here and put it on the weapon layer. Okay, so if you want to, you can add another reference on top of it, like, create a 3D object or whatnot. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and add a weapon on there. So I'm going to go over to my sci-fi gun collection. It's a decent pack. And let's go ahead and add in... Ooh, that looked cool. Let's add in this guy right here. So we're going to go ahead and drop this weapon on here. Now, I want to be able to customize where this weapon spawns. So for me to be able to do that, I'm going to create another empty object on the weapon holder. So we're going to call this the Hell Whaler. Now, this is just what they gave as a name for this weapon. I'm just going to call it that just because I can. And I'm going to drop this on top of there. So now I can adjust this position without moving this original spot. And in fact, we can raise it up, pull it back a little bit, pull it forward. And I'm going to create a prefab out of this. So I'm going to go over to my assets folder, create a new folder, and we're going to call this the prefab folder. Go inside there and drag this Hell Whaler into there. Go ahead and double click that. So now we have this weapon. And for us to be able to have a place for us to shoot, we're going to select this gun, right-click, and create an empty object. And we're going to call this our weapon emitter. I don't think that's how you spelled it, but that's okay. I don't care. Now, all we're doing is simply placing this in front of the weapon, like so. All right, so we now need to be able to create a script which allows us to control this weapon. So I'm going to go over to my assets folder again, right click, create a folder, and we're going to call this scripts. Now eventually we will get into creating scriptable objects, but for now I'm just going to demonstrate how easy it is to create a weapon. So as you can see, I just created a weapon folder. I'm going to go ahead and create another folder called objects, but we're not going to mess with that inside this tutorial. We're going to create a C# script, and we're going to call this our weapon controller. So we're going to go inside our weapon controller, and we're going to get a couple things set up. So our weapon controller just needs to have data that allows us to be able to shoot. So we're going to create a public void called shoot. We're going to create a public I enumerator, which is going to be called Let's say, what should we call that? Fire rate. And we want to give it, I don't know, a certain amount of time to fire. So let's just say int, or actually float, fire rate. Now keep in mind, I am using a lowercase for this reference versus this uppercase for this reference. That is very important because these are two different variables. So for this to work, we need to do a yield return as a new wait for seconds, and we're going to give it the fire rate. And then from there, we're going to activate the fire weapon, which will be shoot. Alright, so we now have the ability to fire whenever we activate this. And this is just going to cast a raycast, which will, just shoot forward. Now, for us to be able to get this raycast, we want to have a emitter point. So we're going to say if physics dot raycast. And from here, we're just going to scroll down to where we find the one we want. Now, normally you can go with the ray values, but I've always found those harder to work with. So we want to be able to set an origin and a direction. So the origin is going to be our weapon emitter. So I'm just going to create a public variable. So public, let's say transform. And we're going to call this weapon. And actually, we'll just call this the emitter because we already know it is the weapon. And I'm going to spell exactly how I had it. I think it's an emitter. However you spell it. I don't care. Oh, Lord have mercy. I cannot spell. Okay, we're just going to type in like this, emitter. If I'm wrong, please comment inside the comment section below so I can fix that. Alright, so we're going to create a public transform called, you know what? I'm just going to call it spawner. There we go. I know I could spell that. So this is going to be our origin. So we're going to say spawner dot position. Then we're going to say spawner dot forward. So we're getting our direction. And now we need to have a destination that gets hit. Now for this out hit to work, we need a raycast hit function, or variable. So we're going to do something like that. And we also need a distance that we can fire. So this will be our range. So let's say range. So we're going to create actually we'll put that below. So public float called range. Normally I would set this to, I don't know, a private float, but for now I think this is alright. So I'm going to set this range equal to 500 for now. And that should be good. Oh, equal to 500. Alright, so inside here we're going to say if hit dot collider is not equal to null, then I'm going to put debug.log hit object. There we go. So now we're going to be able to detect if we hit an object. So I think that should work for now. And we also have our fire rate. Alright, so now we need to determine when we're firing. So we're going to create I could actually do this inside of a different controller, but that's just way too much work. Okay, so for right now, we'll just create a void update. So void update. If input dot get button down, and we're going to be looking for fire 1. Then we're going to activate the fire rate. So we're going to first say shoot because we want to be able to shoot our object immediately. Then we're going to start the coroutine. So start coroutine. And that would be our fire rate. And let me make sure I did spell that right. Oh yeah. We also need to put our fire rate here. So create a public float called fire speed. And we'll make that equal to 1 for now. Fire speed. And there we go. So now we're going to be starting that. And we want to be able to end it as well. So we're going to say if input.get button up. And we're going to grab our fire 1 again. Then we're going to say stop all coroutines. So it's going to prevent any coroutines we have running to stop, which is our fire rate. Okay, so I think that should work. And in fact, whenever we shoot, I want it to also do a debug.log and then say shoot. Okay, so now since we have that set up, we're going to head back over here into Unity. We're going to select our primary, which is this right here. Make sure all the rest of it is also set, or this right here is also set to on our default layer to weapon layer. Yes, change children. And that way all of it is set to our weapons layer so we could see it in our depth cam. Select our top object, and we're just going to select weapon controller and drop it on there. For our spawner, we're going to grab our weapon emitter and drop it there. Now, I want to actually visually see this as well. I really don't feel like programming that. Nope, I'm not even going to worry about it. Okay, so I'm going to go back over to our game view. We're going to hit play. And hopefully we'll be able to... Okay, so our weapon is at the bottom of the screen. But if I start firing, you're going to notice this little hit object at the bottom. So in fact, I'm going to take off the maximize and go over to console view. So I'm going to start firing. I'm going to hold it down. Alright, and so far it looks like it shoots once. Okay, so it's not actually shooting over and over and over again, which is what we want it to do. So let's go ahead and see what's up. So I'm going to clear that out. And I'm going to take out this fire rate float right here. Change this to fire rate. Delete that right there. Alright, that should work. Sometimes you will deal with problems with enumerators. They can be a pain, but they work wonders when it comes down to time management. Alright, I also want to position this this weapon in a way better spot because I could not see it on the screen. So let's go back over to our scene view. Select our weapon. So go over to our weapon holder. Drag it out. Okay, that's the reason why our weapon is super small. So grab this weapon right here. I don't know, set it up to 1.5 maybe. No, 3. There we go. That's way better. Okay, so now we have our weapon, which is super huge, but I mean, who cares? Go ahead and make sure that you do override that. So apply all. And I'm going to set my fire rate down to maybe a 0.25. And okay. So now I'm going to hit play. Alright, so it is shooting whenever I press down, but it doesn't continue to shoot when I go up. Alright, so let me pause real fast and try to get this issue resolved. Alright, and we're back. Okay, so what we need to do is make sure that you do set up this stop all coroutines right here at the get button up, fire 1, which I believe you already had. But what we need to do as well is set up this while statement around our fire rate. So just to ask while true, so we're asking if this object, or if we are firing, is equal to true. And make sure that it just surrounds the yield return statement. So we're going to run this as long as we have that. I'm going to go ahead and delete that right there. And that should work. Okay, so I'm going to head back over here into Unity. And give it a couple seconds. There we go. Just drag this over here. Hit play. And you'll notice down here we have our console window available. If I move forward, if I fire, we're hitting an object, which is great. If I fire into the sky, okay, it still looks like it's hitting an object, which I'm not sure what object we are hitting. So let's go ahead and check that out. So we're going to go over here. If it's not equal to null, then we're going to be doing that. So we're actually going to ask if hit.collider.getTag or .gameObject.tag is equal to enemy. And make sure that it is in quotation marks because it is a string. Now, if that's true, we're going to say hit enemy. Okay. So let's head back over here. And I don't know, let's go ahead and select one of these characters that I have into the scene. So I'm going to press F. This character I got as a low poly knight. A really good pack. The Polygon Knights. There it is. A really interesting pack. I'm going to go ahead and give it a tag. So I'm going to go add tag. Go over here. We're going to call this enemy. Make sure to reselect that character. Go over to tag. And then select enemy. I don't know if it actually has a collider on it, which I don't believe it does. So we're going to add a capsule collider. And let's go ahead and adjust this position. 1, 2. Okay. So now since we have that, we're going to hit play. And let's hope that all works. Alright, so we're going to be firing. Let's go ahead and switch over to console. Nothing. We got nothing, which is great. Now if we fire at the character. Okay, it's still not... Okay, there we go. It is picking up all of a sudden, which is good. But it is only recording once, so I'm going to go ahead and just rotate a couple times. Okay, so we are hitting the character, but it's not casting out as far as what we need it to. So I'm going to do something real fast, and we'll be right back. Alright, so what you want to do is create this variable right here, or create this function or property called onDrawGizmos. Inside here, you're just going to go gizmos.drawArray, our current position, and spawn.forward multiplied by range. Now, I'm going to go ahead to our screen view and find where our player is. And if you notice, we have this ray that's literally drawing downward. And we don't want that. We want it to be able to face forward. So we need to find our weapon emitter, and we need to rotate it. So let's go ahead and rotate it by about negative 90 degrees. So now we have a raycast that's moving forward. Let's go ahead and change our range down to maybe 20, 10, 1. Okay, let's see. So, okay, our range, let's give it maybe a 5. No, 15. Technically, I want a range to be pretty far, so we'll go as 20. Okay, so we now have our range set for us to be able to do that. So now if I press play, we should be able to actually hit our enemy. So we're going to find where our enemy is. I'm going to hit fire. There we go. We are hitting our enemy, which is exactly what we want. So just make sure that you do have your weapon emitter or spawner at the proper point. Otherwise, it will do something like that. If I change the fire rate to 1, you're going to notice that it's actually slower as well. Okay. Inside the next tutorial, what we're going to do is we're going to animate our gun as well as add in effects so we can actually see this object actually shooting. And hopefully we can also get to our character actually interacting with our enemy. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, make sure that you leave a like, subscribe, check out some of my other videos, and I'll see you guys next time.